So today we did the body triangle. Today we did defenses from single leg using Kimura and some Kimura stuff. But in the rules day, I pretty much just worked on guard retention. So just had my opponent try to pass me, and then if he passed me, we would reset. I found that actually very helpful because Jason and Tim have been doing some guard retention stuff. Well, they've been doing guard stuff, so we've been doing lasso a lot over the past few weeks. De la Hiva a little bit and sit-up guard. So just having these like endpoints to aim for made guard retention a lot, I don't know if easier, but more effective. So previously my guard retention was kind of like just get my knees in between me and the opponent, and just sort of try to like keep facing them. But now that I have like an end goal to aim for, like I want to end up in lasso, I want to end up in De La Hiva, I want to end up in spider. It's like it's much more effective. So before I would just be like, oh, I need to get my knees in front of me, and then I do that, and then it's like sort of like, now what? And then they just like pass me, right? Or I'm like continuously trying to get into a position where my knees are in front of me, and they're just doing circles around me and whatever. But now I'm like, oh, I got my knees in front of me. Now what do I need to do? Now I need to get my feet into this position, or I need to get a grip on here, or something like that. So just having like an equilibrium goal, I guess, makes the process a lot easier to do. So I guess it's an analogy for just like having a goal kind of focuses the process. So I guess you can't, it's harder to evolve a process if you don't have a goal in mind. You can, it's harder to refine a process if you don't know what you're going to use that process for. I guess that's why it's better to have a project in mind when you're learning something, because you're always thinking about how can I use this, how can this technique help me accomplish that, rather than just doing something over and over again. Like you can't, how do you develop any sort of taste for it? So that's pretty interesting. Today we worked on some defenses against the single leg. So when Tim teaches us to do single leg, he tells us to hook with the outside arm and then get a lapel grip with the inside arm. And the reason for that is you have more control over your opponent, and also it prevents your opponent from doing a Kimura on you. So we looked at what if your opponent doesn't hold on to the lapel, so he has both arms under your leg when he's doing the single leg. And then what happens if he does that but he keeps his arms tight? And then what if he keeps his grip on the lapel? So the first one is if it's like, if he has you in a single leg, but his arms are kind of loose on it, and so there's a gap between his arm and your leg. So in this case, you want to use so let's say he's got the single leg on your right leg. So your outside arm is your left arm. So your left arm grips his right arm at the wrist. You want to use a monkey grip, so your thumb is on the same side as your fingers, Then your right arm comes around the back, under the arm, and then grips your own wrist. And again, use the monkey grip. Then you take a little hop so that you're sort of facing him. You're obviously not going to be able to face him head on, but you want to kind of face him. His head has to be inside of your armpit, because if it's not, you can get disqualified, because it's a little dangerous. If you drop the wrong way, he could land on his head and break his neck. And you also don't want to like drop and do like I forgot what that move is in like wrestling, like that pro wrestling move when you have someone in the guillotine and you drop to your butt. You don't want to do that. So what you want to do is, so he has a single leg on your right leg. You want to keep your right leg bent, but then you want to have your ankle hook the inside of his right hamstring. And then you want to pistol squat down to kind of lower him slowly, and then you roll onto your back and use that hook with your right foot. So you're pistol squatting down on your left leg, and then your right leg is hooking. Use that hook to bring him around, to like sweep him around. And then at which point he should turn away from you. If he turns into you, you just go into like a front headlock. If he turns away from you, that gives you an opportunity to take his back. So you saw the Kimura grip. So you use the Kimura grip to come up to his back, get the top hook in, then you can roll him onto the other side and get the bottom, well, is now the top hook, but was originally the bottom hook in. So that's the first one. Second one is, what if he uses both arms on the single leg, but his arms are tight, so you can't get the Kimura grip in, or his shoulders are really broad. Yeah. What if you cannot get the Kimura in? So you would initially attempt to get the Kimura. Then as soon as you figure out that you can't get it, you have to switch to this technique, because you just like hang out in that position while if you just hang out in the position and you're not able to do anything, he'll just take you down, because he's trying to do a single leg to you. So the second one is use your left hand, so the outside hand, to grip onto his right arm tight with so you want to use a C grip on this one, thumb out or thumb down. Thumb up. Thumb up. So palm up. And you want to keep it tight with yourself, so your elbow is into your ribs. And then your right arm goes around his back and either grabs his belt or his lat or his hip. You want to keep that tight also. And from there, you do the same thing where you pistol squat down and you use the hook to bring him over. So now in this case, you cannot reliably take the back because you don't have the Kimura control. So instead, you're wrestling up. So you need to get your head up above his head, because it's a scramble. Key thing here is that you will probably have his arm stapled. So you want to keep that arm stapled, but you want to. Usually what happened was that my knee was below his arm, so my quad was on top of his arm. So I want to move my knee above his arm so that I'm stapling his upper arm on my shin. Then he'll So you can use that so he can't, it's harder for him to wrestle up. So if you have that staple plus your head is higher than his head, he won't be able to wrestle up. He won't have the leverage. He'll probably try to wrestle up, so then he'll have his arm up so you can take the underhook on that and go directly into mount from there. The third way is if he has lapel grip, and then it's basically the same as the second technique. I actually don't know what the difference in technique would be between him being tight with your leg and having lapel, because I guess your left hand position is just like a little, it's higher up because you're gripping the arm that has the lapel. But I think that's the only difference. Okay, so then we also talked about just using the Kimura to get into back control. So we did it in the first example, but Tim showed us like a specific example of how to use the Kimura to get into back control when his shoulders are against the ground. So there were two scenarios that we looked at. One is when we defended against a single leg, if instead of him trying to go spin away from us to escape, what if he just goes defensively and brings both of his shoulders to the mat? And the second way is if you already have him in back control, but he escapes and he gets both of his shoulders to the mat. So if you have a Kimura and both of his shoulders on the mat, you can kind of slide out so that you are face down. So you're sort of like in a north-south with a Kimura, and then his head is inside of your arm.
Make a video about
so that is the first. So that's the first step, is to get into that position where you're in like a north-south position, and then with his head, and then you can pivot around. So I think you want to go to the side opposite the Kimura, and then depending on what he does, you can either go to like a knee pinch Kimura, or you can take the back with the Kimura. So we're doing taking the back with the Kimura. So you come up to his side, but you're it's sort of like a side, like an S mount. You're sort of like in an S mount position with a Kimura, and then so a lot of people, you see, they'll just throw their leg over and go to mount from there, but it's not very realistic. They can take advantage of you doing it. I'm not exactly sure how, but it's kind of a very lazy way to go about it. Instead, you put your knee into the pocket, into their hip pocket, to force the gap a little bigger. Use that as wedge. Then you can insert your toes in there, and then finally your whole foot can go to the ground as a post inside their hip pocket. And then you can use that as a seatbelt with your leg across his hip to open them up. And then you can both hooks in there, or you can do like a body triangle from that position. So then was that? I think that was all the techniques. Yeah.